one thing I discovered that you and I had in common is that we were both diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So I'm kind of curious to hear about your story, like what kind of symptoms were you having? I'm curious to see if our situations line up, like if there's similarities between us.
So I had no idea borderline personality disorder existed. My family, again, like we didn't talk about mental health, which is really weird because my mom worked in the mental health field. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like my mom knew that I had borderline, but she was trying to like channel it as more of like bipolar. The reality is, like, I did not understand emotions. I didn't cry at the appropriate times. I felt 3 emotions, and that was ecstatic, livid, and suicidal. And that was it.
Okay.
And I had no idea why. And I'd feel things so much deeper than everyone else. So my mom was like, you always pop off. You take things to the next level. No, I feel it to the next level. This is what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
You know? And then once I got diagnosed, I look at the emotion wheel. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is all these? Like, what is this? There's so many colors and so many words. Like, what are all these? And it was embarrassing because as a 30-year-old plus, I'm sitting here with a doctor and they're explaining, like, this is disappointment. This is anger. This is slightly depressed. This is just sad. I'm like, what the fuck is sad?
Yeah.
Like, it's where like you don't want to die, but like you're not feeling that great. Like, that's a thing. Like, what?
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I think that's one of the markers of borderline personality disorder is that they call it black and white thinking. And I don't think you have to have borderline personality disorder to have this. I think there's a lot of people who struggle with this, whether or not they're diagnosed with this disorder. But it's like exactly what you said. It's that emotional dysregulation. When something upsets you, you don't know how to put that on a scale meter of like 1 to 10. It's like 0 to 10. And I don't know if this is right. I could just be talking shit, but as far as I know, I think that's why it's called, that's why it got the name borderline. Cause it's like, there's a border and you're always teetering between the two. You don't know how to like gradually go up and down, you know?
So the best way that I explain it is like this. Cause for me, I feel they change so rapidly that I can never nab what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So the way that I explain it is if, like, for example, bipolar, you're at a road and there's a fork in that road and at one end is this and at one end is that. Borderline is just one road and everything's at the end. Good luck. That's borderline. So, for example, I'd sit at my desk at work. And again, I thought this was normal, people. Like, just before I say this, just realize at the time, I really thought all this was normal. And it wasn't until I started getting weird looks that I'm like, maybe it's not. But I'd sit at my desk at work and I'd take payments. And I would be happy, go lucky me. And then like nothing, tears are streaming down my face and I want to jump in front of a screen. And I have no idea what caused the flip. And then 15 minutes later, I'm like, yay! You know, they look at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? Like,
I think sometimes borderline personality and bipolar get confused because they hear the word bi and they think that it's the same thing. But I know people in my family who have bipolar. And from what I understand, bipolar is longer lengths of these depressions and manias. So somebody that I know in my family who has bipolar, when they go through a depressed phase, it could be like 3 months of I can't get out of my bed. And then 3 months of I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like singing karaoke when everybody's asleep. That's what bipolar is. It's like longer stretches of emotional dysregulation. And borderline personality, I think, is like daily, like it could be like within seconds. It's not like I'm depressed for months. It's like, I want to kill myself at 1 o'clock. And by 3 o'clock, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life.
Tacos. Well, the thing is, borderline can be also diagnosed with bipolar at the same time, believe it or not. Because it could last a long period of time. The thing is, we just never know. Could be 5 minutes, could be 15 minutes, could be 5 years. Suck it up. My problem with my borderline and what I really need to hone in on, I'm still working on it, is splitting. I split so frequently and it's horrible because that fixated person becomes, and I know it's not a technical diagnosis, but because I have ADHD, I was taking a medication for ADHD and I didn't realize it was exacerbating that fixated person for me. It was literally like obsessive love disorder.
I don't want to interrupt you, but just for the listeners who aren't aware, can you explain what splitting is so they can follow the story?
So when you have borderline personality disorder, one of the common symptoms is to have a fixated person. This fixated person does not have to be romantic. It could be a friend, a family member. It could be the mailman. It doesn't matter. Somebody that you put on a pedestal above everyone else. They're the hero of your story. So splitting is where they do something that will trigger you, which for a borderline could be as simple as changing your facial expression to a negative one, or not answering in a certain amount of time that they think you should. Cancel, change plans. Very minimal things that most people would just brush off would be a big deal are devastating to a borderline. So when that happens, there's something called splitting, which is where you go from being on this pedestal to you are literally dirt beneath my feet. And I'm going to make you feel like you are dirt beneath my feet. Some people get the explosive anger portion. I fortunately do not get angry, so I don't have that. But there has been like violent outbursts I've seen or I've read about, I've heard from other people who are borderlines. It can get like very dangerous, to be honest. But the problem is when you're done splitting as a borderline, you don't remember the split. So for me, it's sending 18 paragraphs, 10 missed calls to a person who ain't answering and still somehow not getting the point across that I wanted to. Because I couldn't convey what I was feeling because I didn't know what I was feeling.
Yeah.
We get something and we think we're feeling something. And little do we know if we sit back for a minute or two, we're like, oof. Emotions are temporary visitors. Got it. Okay. I don't actually feel
right. Yeah. No, that's another that. Okay, we definitely have the same thing. Like we were both probably diagnosed correctly because, and I think I have other disorders as well. I don't just have this one, but like I definitely have this one because I can relate to the unable to understand that emotions are temporary. And I think that's why the black and white things happen, because it's like when you feel pain, you think that's permanent. Like you think like this is going to be my life. And that's why if it was permanent, then it makes sense to be like freaking out, because it's like, if I'm going to be this sad forever, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, no matter how many times it occurs, like you can't remember like, oh yeah, the last time I had my period, I got like this. Like you don't remember, you don't remember those things. You know what I mean?
An important thing to mention is that borderline personality disorder is known as the most painful mental health condition. They compare it to having third-degree burns emotionally. That's how sensitive borderlines are. 1 in every 10 borderlines die by suicide.
Yeah.
And the mean number of times that a borderline will try in their lifetime is 3 for every borderline.
Yeah.
So I like to explain that to people, not to make it like bring the party down, but just to educate that what seems like it shouldn't be a big deal to most people really is to a borderline. If you have somebody in your life that is a borderline and they ever start mentioning things that kind of give you red flags as far as suicide is concerned, take them seriously, very seriously, immediately.
One thing I've noticed about, for me personally, most of my symptoms manifested in my romantic relationships, because you were talking about having this special person that you rely on for like emotional validation. For me, that was always romantic relationships. And when I was diagnosed with this, when I was like, I'm 34 now, and I think I was diagnosed when I was like 24, I remember like wanting to kind of tell my friends and my family about it and be like, hey, just to get some sympathy or some compassion. And it was amazing. All my friends and family, they were like, there's no way you have that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It manifests in my private life. When I go, like, I look like the most together person, like in real life. Like I run a business. Like I mean, look at you, like you know, same thing. Like I run a business. I work out almost every single day. I mean, sometimes I go through depressions where I don't work out for a few weeks, but overall, like in the big picture thing, I work out all the time. I'm like constantly busy. I take care of myself. Like I'm always like on the lookout for things. So when I like came out and told people about this, they were like, there's no way you were misdiagnosed. I'm like, you don't get it. You just don't see it because it only really comes out in my private romantic life. Like I'm able to kind of carry myself like this like really responsible person in real life. And then at my home life, you know, when I'm in love with somebody or I'm dating somebody, it's like all the shit comes out. And it's like, trust me, if I were to interview every single guy I ever dated, they would be like, yeah, she has that. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, so that's like the other frustrating thing is that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these people seem like they have it together, but unless you're actually like living with them or dating them, you don't really know like what it's actually like.